Shalom Yasharala, Shabbat Shawab, back with another lesson. Today we're going to be going over, are there two different kind of Gentiles, and are we in the New Covenant? The intent purpose of these lessons is because I'm actually planning on starting a series soon, but I want to get these issues cleared up because they're going to crop up in this series, and I don't want to have to go over them over and over again, so we can focus more on the issue that we're dealing with in each lesson. So if you haven't watched the previous lesson, I definitely recommend that you go and catch up to speed with that. And without further ado, glorify the Father, and say Brakatah Yahweh, Brakatah Yahweh Shai, Brakatah Yahweh, Brakatah Yahweh Shai, Immanuel, Shalom, Kwam Yasharala, Kwam Yasharala. So the first scripture I want to bring out is Proverbs chapter 23. Proverbs chapter 23. And no. Proverbs 25 and 2. It says, "It is the glory of Yahweh to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter." Okay, so it's the glory of the Most High to conceal things. You know, people want to say, why are these things not clear? Why are they not easy? And it's like, well, if it was clear and easy, then it's not just for us. You know, I mean, obviously only we can get the understanding, but it's our honor to seek these things out, to unravel these mysteries, okay? Because he doesn't just speak to anybody. He's speaking to us. And only we have the mind and spirit, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem HaMashiach Yahweh Shai, to decipher these things. So, it's lucky if there's a lot of coughing, by the way. I'm not too well at the minute. But yeah, it's our honor to seek out the things that the Most High so gloriously hid, right? So the next precept I want to get is Hosea, chapter 4, Salaki. Okay. Hosea, chapter 4 and 6 says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children." Right? So the Most High said that if we don't obey him, he will do these things. And because we didn't obey him, he's turned his back and forgotten us. Not completely, of course, but yeah, he's forgotten our children and allowed them to go in with the other nations, right? It's not too deep. So I want to get Deuteronomy. We're gonna showcase this. Deuteronomy chapter 1 verse 1, just to let you know who he's speaking to throughout the book of Deuteronomy. Of course, not everybody knows this. "These be the words," Deuteronomy chapter 1 verse 1, "These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel on this side Jordan in the wilderness." So he's speaking to Israel in the book of Deuteronomy. Just to make that clear. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 1. It says, "And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth." Okay, so if we had obeyed him, he would have set us on high above everybody. And then the next 14, Salakia, or the first 1 through 14, deals with the blessings that we would have got if we had obeyed him. Obviously, we didn't. So, to Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 15, it says, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." Right, so if anybody doesn't know already, Deuteronomy chapter 28, 15 and onwards tells you the curses that the Israelites will be going through for our disobedience, right? But I want verse 36. So this is a curse, right? Verse 36, it says, "The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou..." No. I want 64. It's like 64. My bad. 64. "And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone." So if we know ourselves, if we know who we are, usually, because some Israelites know who they are and they're not, but usually we'll be serving the Most High. We know who we are, we know what our job is. right? But he said he's going to scatter us among all people and we're going to serve other gods. Now that's important. You need to remember that. When we're scattered amongst the other people, we're going to serve other gods. Now, when we get into some verses later on, I'm going to call back to this verse, and you're going to see exactly why I outlined that point, so to speak, right? Right. So let me get Baruch chapter 2. Baruch chapter 2. Just like it. Baruch 2. Baruch chapter 2, 28. Okay. Baruch chapter 2 verse 28, it says, As thou spakest by thy servant Moses in the day when thou didst command him to write thy law before the children of Israel, saying, If ye will not hear my voice, surely this very great multitude shall be turned into a small number among the nations, right? So that doesn't mean that we're going to be less. There's going to be less of us. What it's talking about is we're going to be scattered amongst the nations, and we're going to be a small number amongst them. You know, we got brothers everywhere, and we're not all a big multitude together. We're all scattered into portions around the world. That's what it's talking about. But it said amongst the nations, right? So reading on, it says, Surely this very great multitude shall be turned into a small number among the nations where I will scatter them, for I knew that they would not hear me, all right? Because it is a stiff-necked people. But in the land of their captivities, they shall remember themselves, and shall know that I am the Lord their God, for I will give them an heart and ears to hear, right? And they shall praise me in the land of their captivity, and think upon my name, and return from their stiff neck, and from their wicked deeds, for they shall remember the way of their fathers, which sinned before the Lord. So that's what's happening right now. It's happened time and time again. But in the land of our captivity, we've remembered the Most High. We've remembered who we are. We've remembered the laws. We remember the way of our fathers. You know, the laws, the statutes, the commandments, our heritage. And we're starting to do them. We're starting to praise the Most High in the land of our captivity now. So that's what that's going into. Us being scattered everywhere. But because we're amongst the nations, and it says we will remember ourselves and our lot. So that means that amongst these nations, we're not going to know who we are, what our laws are, who our fathers were. We're not going to know these things. We're not going to know that the Most High God is our God. We're not going to know these things amongst the nations, right? In modern history, that has been the case, man. That's been the case until last century, the back end of last century. People weren't knowing they were Israelites, you know. Maybe the odd few, but people weren't knowing they were Israelites, man. You know, over the last few hundred years, the odd few have known, but until now, we didn't know that, right? But even back in the times of the Romans, the Greeks, even back in the times of the Greeks and the Romans, some of us didn't know who we were. Some of us did, who were back in Judea. But a lot of us, we didn't know who we were, man. We were just amongst the Greeks doing Greek stuff, amongst the Romans doing Roman stuff, right? That's just how it was. That's the issue here with Gentiles, right? So before we go any further, I want to bring out this must-have book, the Compact Bible Dictionary, the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary, right? So I'm going to get page 175. Right. No. 109. 195. Salaki. 195. Right. The definition of Gentiles says nation, people, right? Usually, it means a non-Israelite people, right? Usually. Not all the time. It doesn't always mean that. It doesn't always mean non-Israelite people. It usually does. But if we're not keeping the laws and we're amongst them doing their thing, guess what? Growing up, I never knew I was an Israelite. Ask most brothers that you know who are Israelites, who know they're Israelites. They'll tell you they didn't know they were Israelites. You know, me growing up 4 years ago, if you said to me, hey, what's your nationality? I'd have said British, right? But if there's a Chinaman, a Moabite next to me who was born here, right? He was born here, he grew up British, and you asked him his nationality and he said British, and I said British, are we the same people? No, but we're both considered British. We both have British citizenship. In fact, just right quick. Just going through the spirit, I want to get Romans chapter 11 verse 1, right? It says, I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham of the tribe of Benjamin. So Paul was of the tribe of Benjamin, right? He said himself, he said, I also am an Israelite of the tribe of Benjamin, right? So Paul just said he's an Israelite. Let's go to Acts chapter 22. Acts chapter 22. And 25, I believe. I'll start at 24. This is after Paul's arrest, right? It says, the chief captain commanded him to be brought into the castle and bade that he should be examined by scourging, that he might know wherefore they cried so against him. And as they bound him with thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman? Now hold on a minute, I thought Paul was an Israelite. I thought he just said he was an Israelite of the tribe of Benjamin. But now here he's saying he's a Roman? What's this talking about? Let's see. And uncondemned? When the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman. Then the chief captain came and said unto him, tell me, art thou a Roman? He said, yea. Now to add some cultural context, in Roman law, you could scourge, you know, they had all the provinces, right? So Judea, the land of Israel, was, you know, so we had King Herod. He was the king of Israel. He was, he's an Edomite, so that was an unlawful thing. It says that we shouldn't set a king of another nation over us. But King Herod was the king of Judea, but guess what? He paid tribute to Rome, to Caesar. Because it was a Roman province. It was its own place with a king, but that king had to answer to Rome, right? He wasn't just doing his own thing. He wasn't in his own power. Excuse me. He had to answer to Rome, right? He was under Roman jurisdiction. He was the land of Judea was a province of Rome. It's part of the Roman Empire, right? So other nations, they could scourge. Other people that weren't Romans, they could scourge them, right? But it was illegal for them it was unlawful for them to scourge a Roman, right? And Paul's basically saying, hey, you're about to scourge me? You know it's not lawful for you to do that to a Roman. And now they kind of realize, oh, this man's he's a Roman, right? And the chief captain answered with a great sum. Oh, select it. And the chief captain answered, with a great sum obtained I this freedom. And Paul said, but I was freeborn. So the captain's saying, look, I bought my citizenship, because that was the thing back then. They would sell citizenship for a hefty wage to get the benefits of having that citizenship. For example, you can't be scorched, right? So this man, he bought his citizenship. Paul said, I was born with it. I was born a Roman, because he wasn't born in the land of Judea. He was born in Tarsus, which made him a Roman citizen, right? He moved to Judea to study under Gamaliel. I always struggle with his name. I struggle with it. That was a blunder. But yeah, he studied under a very mighty brother anyway. So, Gamaliel, that's it. So he said, I was born for you, because he was born in Tarsus, right? Now straightway they departed from him, which should have examined him, and the chief captain also was afraid, after he knew that he was a Roman, and because he had bound him. Okay, so that's a classic example of what I was just saying about being British. I'm a British citizen, right? I have British citizenship, but I'm an Israelite, not an Edomite, not a Moabite, not an Ishmaelite. I'm an Israelite. Same thing. You could have an Edomite, an Israelite, and a Moabite stood next to each other. They're all British. Not the same people, though, right? One more thing that I want out of the Zondervan dictionary before we move on is page 207, I believe. Yes. Okay, so Grecia, Grecians. Grecia is Greece, the home of the Hellenes, Greeks and Grecians. However, are to be distinguished. Greeks are generally those of Hellenic race, right? But the word may be used to indicate non-Jews, foreigners and aliens, right? Grecians were Greek-speaking Jews, folks of the dispersion from areas predominantly Greek, right? It says in here, Acts 6:1. Let's see what this is talking about. Book of Acts, chapter 6. I'm still thinking about that name, Gamaliel. That was a serious blunder. Acts chapter 6, verse 1. It says, and in those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews, because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure that is talking about us. I'm not sure why they said that, though. Anyway, with those points established, I want 2nd Ezra, chapter 2, chapter 3. Might be chapter 3. 2nd Ezra, chapter 3. No, chapter 2. 2nd Ezra, chapter 2, verse 33. It says, I, Ezra, received a charge of the Lord, so the Lord commanded him something, upon the Mount Horeb, that I should go unto Israel. So he's saying, Ezra's saying that Yahweh gave him a command to go to Israel, right? To go into Israel. But when I came unto them, they set me at naught, and despised the commandment of the Lord, right? So he said, the Lord said, go to Israel and rebuke these people. But they despised his counsel and set Ezra at naught, right? Watch what he says. And therefore I say unto you, O ye heathen. Let me read that again. And therefore I say unto you, O ye heathen, that hear and understand, look for your shepherd, he shall give you everlasting rest, for he is nigh at hand, that shall come in the end of the world. Yahushua, right? But he called his own people, the Israelites, he called them heathens. Just showing you that when we don't get down with what the Most High wants us to do, we're considered heathens, right? We are considered heathens. Now let me get 1 Maccabees. chapter 1. No, yeah, First Maccabees, chapter 1. Verse 46. No. Yeah, I do want this, but where am I wanting to start? Right, verse 41. Second Ezra, First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and every one should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. So King Antiochus said that he made a decree that all should be one people, and the heathen agreed to it. But then it says, yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, right? And profane the Sabbath. That's another one that we need to remember. They sacrificed unto idols, but they consented unto his new religion of everyone being one person. You're an Israelite, you're a Moabite, you're an Edomite. Well, guess what? Now we're all Grecians. See what I'm saying? For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days. Right, so they weren't allowed to keep these days. It says, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. That they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law, and charge all the ordinances. So and change all the ordinances, trying to get us to forget the law, right? Which is exactly what happened. Because we have people out in the bathhouse getting weird with the Greeks. People doing the Olympic sports. Discus. Now, the Olympic sports, we're going to get into that. It's not the same Olympics we have today, right? They had it was called the Olympic sport. They would do games like discus, and they would do it a lot of the time basically naked, and they would do it in service of an idol god, right? So it wasn't just normal everyday exercise. It was freaky. It was freaky exercise. That's where the word gymnasium comes from. It comes from them doing these things, right? And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said, he should die. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor. Okay, so if we wanted to keep our laws, we had to flee. We had to get out of there. We couldn't do it out in the open. But a lot of us just said, I'll get down with the Greeks. I'm kind of sick of keeping holy days anyway. Kind of sick of doing all these sacrifices anyway. Right? They didn't want to serve the Most High. They wanted to be like the Greeks. Right? What's that one? I think it's in here. I wish I'd have grabbed this one now. I don't remember it. It's been a minute since Maccabees. There's one scripture, it says that they were putting off the honor of their fathers and preferring the honor of the Greeks. I think it's in the chapter that we're going to anyway. So let me get 2 Maccabees chapter 4. I'm pretty sure it's in here anyway, what I'm looking for. If not, it talks about how a lot of us preferred the Greek customs to our own. Second Maccabees chapter 4. Where do I want to start? Because it's a lot of meat in here. Start at the top. Then Simon, now of whom we spake afore, having been a betrayer of the money and of his country, slandered Onias, as if he had terrified Helodorus, and being the worker of these evils, right? So, actually, First Maccabees 1:14. Hold on. Just for some context. Slovakia. First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 14. It says, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sought to do mischief. Now that's not what I wanted, I don't believe. But this is key. This is key. Where we joined ourselves to the heathen, right? Did their customs. So 2 Maccabees chapter 4, I'm just going to quickly give the rundown. Basically, Onias was the high priest. He was a righteous high priest. And his brother Jason backdoored him, right? Because he wanted the high priesthood. He coveted that position, right? So instead of having the high priesthood honorably, he backdoored his brother and paid for the position, right? Right. I'll start verse 4. Onias, seeing the danger of this contention, and that Apollonius, as being the governor of Syria and Phoenice, did rage, and increase Simon's malice. He went to the king, not to be an accuser of his countrymen, but seeking the good of all, both public and private. For he saw that it was impossible that the state should continue quiet, and Simon leave his folly, unless the king did look thereunto. But after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus, called Epiphanes, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be high priest. When it says he labored underhand, it means, yeah, he backdoored him. He did shady deals to get his high priesthood, right? Promising unto the king by intercession 360 talents of silver, and of another revenue 80 talents. So he was paying for this high priesthood, right? Beside this, he promised to assign 150 more if he might have license, which means permission, to set him up a place for exercise. Okay, that's that gymnasium style thing, because he liked the way of the heathen, man. He liked getting naked and weird with the heathen, right? Probably go into that in another lesson. There's a lot of cultural context. Maccabees is super deep. And for the training up of the youth in the fashions of the heathen. So setting up a place to train the youth in the fashions of the heathen. We'll come back to this. But I want to get Proverbs. Proverbs 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So when it says train up a child in the way he should go, that's talking about training him up in the laws, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. But that's the same case if you train him up in the heathen customs. When he's older, he's going to struggle to depart from it, right? A lot of people, they've grown up in this world in the heathen customs, and they don't want to depart from it. They like it, right? So it's the same deal here. He wants to train up the youth in the customs of the heathen, in the fashions of the heathen, right? And to this is back to 2 Maccabees 4 and 9. And to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians, right? Let me just see if this. I can't find that verse I wanted, but it said to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians. I don't have my Good News Bible; it's not here with me. But in the Good News translation, it says to call them citizens of Antioch, right? So that's what it's going to call them by the name of Antiochians. So instead of calling them Judeans, you call them Antiochians. Instead of calling us Israelites, we're called British, American, all these sorts of things, Portuguese, African, all these sorts of things, right? To call them by a different name, okay? So that's what that's all about. So we're going to go to Luke, chapter 19. So these people were lost, man. These people were lost. They'd gone off, and that's it. They were away now. They'd gone off. They were lost. They had joined themselves with the heathens, and now that is in the time of the Greeks. A few generations later, during the time of the Romans, they're still over there because they were born over there, doing the same thing that they were doing over there, right? This is Luke chapter 19, verse 10. It says, likewise, that's 15, slack you. I do want Luke chapter 19, verse 10. It says, for the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. He's come to seek out and save that which was lost. Right? What's it say here? Just looking at the notes. Matthew 18:11. Let's see what that says. See what that says. The Son of Man seeking out and saving what was lost. 18:11. For the Son of Man is come to save that which was lost. Same thing. Right. So the heathen were never lost. They never fell away. It was our people that fell away, right? So next I want to get 1 Corinthians chapter 12. First Corinthians 12 and 2. It says, ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. Remember, Gentile means usually a non-Israelite, not always. Remember, we also read that a Grecian can be a Greek-speaking Jew. Right? Ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. That's why I wanted to make that point of Deuteronomy 28. Right? And about them serving idols in Maccabees, right? Because the Most High said, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth, even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. They were led away unto dumb idols, right? But it says, ye know that ye were Gentiles. Self-explanatory, man. They were Gentiles, but they've given up that and they've come back to their heritage, right? That's what's going on here. Let me get Romans chapter 5, verse 10. For if, when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his Son, much more being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. Now, if you remember if you watched the last video, which, like I say, I recommend you do, because I'm not going to go into too much detail, reconcile is to be made friends again, to become back on good graces again. So you can't be reconciled to something that you were never a friend of, that you were never in good grace with. So the heathen can't be reconciled to God. They can't be reconciled to God. We can. We were reconciled because we were in his good grace. We fell away. Reconciled now. Made friends again. Simple as that. So now I want Deuteronomy No. I want Romans 11 and 11. Just to make an example, make a point. But first, actually, thinking about it, I want Matthew first. Matthew chapter 15, verse 24. Matthew 15, 24. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He said it himself. He is only coming to save Israel. Romans chapter 11, verse 11. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. Now, when you look at that word fall, let me read on. But rather through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy. Now, when you look at those two words fall, it's two different words. Because he said, God forbid that they will fall. They're not going to fall. But then he says, through their fall, this will happen. So, what, are they going to fall or not? It's two different words. I can't remember for the life of me which words they were. But the first one is saying, God forbid, they're not going to fall. As in, we're not going to fall from Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6, being a holy people above all people. That's not going to change. But through our fall, as in through us fumbling the bag, so to speak, kind of messing up, salvation has come to the Gentiles. But we just read that he's only coming for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Bear in mind, he's only coming for sinners, right? I mean, he's coming to save sinners, right? So, if he's only coming to save the lost sheep of the house of Israel, but the Gentiles can have salvation, it's not adding up. That's not adding up at all. So what is it talking about when it says salvation has come to the Gentiles? Because if you're a Hebrew Israelite and you know the doctrine, then you already know that salvation cannot come to the heathen nations. The other people cannot be saved. Let's get it. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 21. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 21. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. And I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. When we don't serve the Most High, we're foolish, and we're not a people anymore when we're amongst these Gentiles, because we're part of their nation now. We're doing their things amongst them. We're not Israelites no more, right? Let me get this. Jeremiah. Let me start with Sirach. All right. Let me start with Sirach. Sirach, chapter 17, verse 11. Sirach chapter 17, verse 11. Beside this, he gave them knowledge and the law of life for an heritage. He gave us the law of life for an heritage. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. The law, statutes, and commandments is the way of life, and that's our heritage. Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 4. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger which shall burn forever. So he said that the law, statutes, and commandments that he gave us is our heritage. And then in Jeremiah 17 and 4, he said we will discontinue from our heritage, right? So we won't have those laws, statutes, and commandments anymore. It's exactly what we read in Maccabees. That's exactly what's happened for the last few hundred years, right? Okay? But he said he would provoke us to jealousy with those which are not a people, right? Because we're not a people when we're not keeping our heritage. We're not a people anymore. We're not Israelites anymore, right? Right? Let me get Psalms. Let me get Psalm 83. Right? And I'll tell you something that I love about this verse too. Psalm chapter 83. I'll start verse 1. Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation. You see that? Cut them off from being a nation. It says, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. You see that? We're not a people when we don't have our heritage. They cut us off from that. But the Most High gave us up to it. But it was through them, through what they did, right? But what I love about this verse is if you read it in the Hebrew, obviously, Israel is not, it's not a word there. It says Yasharallah. So, Yasharallah, the name Yasharallah hasn't been uttered for so long until recently. Until brothers started to wake up and realize who he was and find the original ancient Hebrew language. No one was saying Yasharallah, even back in the day, hundreds of years ago. If they wanted to, they would call it Yisrael, right? So when it said that the name of Yasharallah may be no more in remembrance, well, yeah, the name Yasharallah was not in remembrance for a long time. That's what I love about that verse, man. When you really deep it, like, they really cut off our name because we're not called Israel. All right? In English, we are, sure. But really, our name is Yasharallah. And that's been cut off for so long. The Most High is so merciful and so powerful. How else could we have come back from this? Only through him. Bahasham HaMashiach Yahushai. So, Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 21. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. And I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. That's not talking about heathens, right? Let me get Isaiah chapter 7, right? Isaiah chapter 7, verse 8. Hold on. Isaiah chapter 7, verse 8. It says, for the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. And within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken, that it be not a people. Okay, Ephraim is the head tribe of the northern kingdoms, right? It said, Ephraim be broken, that it be not a people. Now that is talking about the northern kingdoms, yeah? But it's talking about us not being a people anymore, not having the heritage. Same thing in Psalm 83. So it does apply to the southern kingdom too. Not this specific verse in the context that it's in, but the spiritual application, the application of the wisdom when considering Psalm 83, talking about concepts and principalities. If you apply that concept to the southern kingdom, yeah, he provoked us to anger with a foolish nation, right? Because a lot of us weren't cool with these damn Greek Israelites coming back around. A lot of us weren't cool with that, right? Okay? A lot of us weren't cool with that. So when we go back and read Romans chapter 11, Romans chapter 11, verse 11, it says, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy. See that? Salvation hasn't come to everybody. It's come to our people that were living amongst the other nations, being Gentiles, to provoke us to jealousy, right? Let me get Luke chapter 15, right? Luke chapter 15, starting at verse 11. And he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living. Right? So his father gave his son his blessing, gave him the things that they inherit, right? And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country. See that? Into a far country. He went somewhere else. And there wasted his substance with riotous living, right? He wasted what was so blessedly given to him by living riotously, by living foolishly, not according to wisdom, right? Now, if you can't tell already, this is talking about our people who stopped keeping the commandments, and went into foolishness, right? Went somewhere else doing something else, even though they had so much blessing, right? And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want, right? You realize there's no wisdom here, man. I mean, want of real wisdom, real knowledge and understanding. And when he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husks that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger, right? He's saying, how blessed is it over there, and I'm not getting anything over here joined with these other people. I will arise and go to my father, and I will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. You see that? Make me as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father, but when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. This is the Most High forgiving us, right? And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, bring forth the best robe, and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet, and bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead. Hold on a minute. He wasn't dead. He wasn't physically dead. It says, for this my son was dead, and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they began to be merry. Right? Let me see if I remember this one. It's a classic, I really should. Proverbs chapter 12, I believe. Is it Proverbs 12? I really hope I got this one. I really wanted that verse. Just bear with me, slack you. Right. I just had the numbers the wrong way around. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 16. The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead. Right? Does that mean he's physically dead? No, he's spiritually dead. Right? Let me get Baruch. Chapter 4, verse 1. Right? Look at this. Baruch chapter 4, verse 1. This is the book of the commandments of God, and the law that endureth forever. All they that keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die. Now, paying attention to how this is worded, it says, they that keep it shall come to life. Now, you have to be alive already in order to keep the commandments. You can't keep the Sabbath day when you're dead. You can't honor your father and mother when you're dead, right? You can't keep Passover when you're dead. You can't wear fringes when you're dead. So it's not talking about physically coming to life. It's talking about spiritually coming to life. It says they that keep it shall come to life, right? They're already alive, but they're going to come to spiritual life. But such as leave it shall die. So that's why he says here in Luke chapter 15, verse 24, it says, for this my son was dead and is alive again. He wasn't dead. He was just somewhere else doing something else. But he was spiritually dead. He was lost and is found, and they began to be merry. Now his elder son was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, Thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. And he was angry and would not go in. Therefore came his father out and entreated him. Oh, Salakia, I had a point there. And he said unto him, Thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. And he was angry. The older brother was angry, right? Why was he angry? He got moved to jealousy with a fool, right? Someone who wasn't anymore. He got moved to jealousy. He was jealous, right? Let's see. And he answering said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment, and yet thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this thy son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. See that? He was jealous. He was jealous of what the other son got. He was moved to jealousy. See that? And he said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad. For this thy brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. So you see that? He was jealous, right? We're only an hour in. About 50 minutes in. We've got plenty of time. Plenty of time. So I want to touch on Romans 9. Right? Oh, I love Romans 9. Right. Romans 9, verse 1. I say the truth in Christ, I lie not. My conscience also bearing me witness in the Holy Ghost, that I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart. For I could wish that myself were accursed from Christ, for my brethren, for my kinsmen according to the flesh. Okay, my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption. If Israel are already the Most High's children, why do they need the adoption? Well, because of what we just read. All of what we just read. That's why the adoption pertains to us. Because we left and we need to be adopted back. There's no grafting in of the heathen. This is talking about our people that went astray and were allowed to come back. Adopted back in. Right? But that's it on the Gentiles. Now we're going to touch on the new covenant. Right? And I'm not actually going to go too in depth with this. I might do actually. I might do. We've still got time. Hebrews chapter 9. Okay, I did this. Did a breakdown of this on the road. Was it last week or a couple of weeks ago? But just gonna get back into it. Hebrews chapter 9. Then verily the first covenant had also ordinances of divine service and a worldly sanctuary, right? Exodus 28 and 5. Exodus chapter 28 verse 5. And they shall take gold. No? 25 and 8? 25 and 8. My bad. Getting all my numbers mixed up today. Exodus chapter 25 verse 8. And let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. Right? Not that deep. It's just the tabernacle. If you don't know what the tabernacle is, it's a tent where the priests would do the sacrifice. It was in the middle of the camp. And it was a big tent. While we're in the wilderness and we obviously couldn't have a standing building, a standing temple, we had to have a tent, something we could move, right? The priest would do service in there, and then there was the Holy of Holies at the back. The Holy of Holies, that's where the Day of Atonement sacrifice was given by the high priest, and only the high priest could go in there. Only Aaron, and then obviously the high priest who came after Aaron through his line. Only Aaron could go in there, right? You couldn't just go into the Holy of Holies. You would literally drop dead. That's saith the scripture. You would just drop dead. You can't just waltz in there however you want. It's got to be one time a year. You got to be in the right spirit. You got to be dressed right, and it can only be the high priest, right? Right. Hebrews chapter 9 verse 2. For there was a tabernacle made, the first wherein was the candlestick and the table and the shewbread, which is called the sanctuary, right? Called the sanctuary. And after the second veil, the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of holy, the holiest of all, Salakia, it's the Holy of Holy, which had the golden censer and the ark of the covenant, overlaid round about with gold, wherein was the golden pot that had manna, and Aaron's rod that budded, and the tables of the covenant, and over it the cherubims of glory, shadowing the mercy seat, of which we cannot now speak particularly. So he's saying we're not going to go into too much detail on that. We've got other things to talk about, right? Verse 6. Now when these things were thus ordained, the priest went always into the first tabernacle, accomplishing the service of God. But into the second went the high priest alone once every year, not without blood, which he offered for himself and for the errors of the people, right? So it's talking about the Day of Atonement. Talking about the Day of Atonement. This is during the first covenant, right? So Leviticus chapter 16, verse 29. And might seem a bit random going over that, but it's important, right? Leviticus chapter 16, verse 29. It says, "And this shall be the statute forever unto you, that in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, ye shall afflict your souls, and do no work at all, whether it be one of your own country or a stranger that sojourneth among you," right? So that's the Day of Atonement. I want to keep reading. For on that day shall the priest make an atonement for you to cleanse you, that ye may be clean from all your sins before the Lord. So it shall be a Sabbath of rest unto you, and ye shall afflict your souls by a statute forever. And the priest whom he shall anoint, and whom he shall consecrate to minister in the priest's office in his father's stead, shall make the atonement, and shall put on the linen clothes, even the holy garments, right? So he had to put on the linen garments, he had to be clean, and this is it said in his father's office, right? So Aaron's son, Aaron's grandson, going down through that line, right? And he shall make an atonement for the holy sanctuary, and he shall make an atonement for the tabernacle of the congregation, and for the altar, and he shall make an atonement for the priests, and for all the people of the congregation, and this shall be an everlasting statute unto you, to make an atonement for the children of Israel for all their sins once a year. And he did as the Lord commanded Moses, right? So, back to Hebrews 9, that's the Day of Atonement, right? I want to read down to verse 10. Yeah. The Holy Ghost, this signifying that the way into the holiest of all was not yet made manifest. The holiest of all, like the holiest holy, which is, Hamashiach. While as the first tabernacle was yet standing. So this thing wasn't made manifest while the first tabernacle was standing. It says, which was a figure for the time then present, right? So that was the thing for that time, in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices that could not make him that did the service perfect, right? Couldn't make him perfect, right? Still had, this is why I said make sure you watch the last video and you can understand how, we can atone for these things, but we can't really be perfect without Hamashiach, right? They could not make him that did the service perfect as pertaining to the conscience, which stood only in meats and drinks and divers washing and carnal ordinances imposed on them until the time of Reformation, right? Okay, reading. But Christ, being come and high priest of good things to come, by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building, right? Let me get Acts, because this is a more perfect tabernacle. Because remember, with Hamashiach and our faith in Hamashiach, we can be made perfect. We're all guilty before God, but guess what? Now we can atone for things, man. We can be forgiven of sins that we couldn't be forgiven of before, right? So this is the perfect tabernacle, right? Acts chapter 3. Just like here. Acts chapter 3. No. Acts chapter 7, my bad. Acts chapter 7, verse 48, right? Yeah. Acts chapter 7, verse 48. It says, this is... What? Okay. Acts chapter 7 verse 48. Howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, as saith the prophet. Right? The Most High doesn't dwell in temples made with hands. So let's see where he dwells. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. First Corinthians 3:16. It says, Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? Right? So we are the temple. That we are that more perfect tabernacle. Okay. Back to Hebrews 9. So that's us, right? Because he dwells in us, man. Whenever two are gathered in his name, there is in the midst. Hebrews chapter 9 verse 12. Neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. See that? So we still have to keep the Day of Atonement, because that's in Leviticus 23. Right? That's a Torah law that we keep that. We still have to keep the Day of Atonement. Obviously we can't do sacrifice because we don't have a temple right now. But a physical standing temple where the priests do office. But you know, it's basically saying Aaron and his sons went in once a year. Well, not him and his sons at once, but, you know, by the descendant of the priesthood. They went in once a year to make an atonement. Hamashiach went in once, right? He went in once to make that perfect redemption for us, right? Now, let me get Galatians 3:13. But let me just select you. Where's my bookmark at? Oh yeah, I know why that's there. Cool, I'll just bookmark this, make it easier. Galatians chapter 3:13. Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us, for it is written, Cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree. Now, you know, Christ is not a curse, but he was cursed for us. He's freed us from the curse of the law, right? Obviously, like I say, once again, if you haven't seen my previous lesson, make sure you go back and check that, because these are things that we don't have time to go into in full detail, right? And this is going to be the same thing for the series that's going to come out soon. The series I'm going to start soon. It's probably going to be a weekly thing, but we're going to be going into certain topics where this understanding must already be mutually established between us. So this is why I'm doing these lessons now, this lesson and the previous lesson from last week by the time this goes up, so that we can mutually establish these things and we don't have to go in depth on them anymore when dealing with the next set of topics throughout the series. So I'm trying to pre-establish these things so that, like I said, there's a mutual understanding. You're brought up to speed for anyone who's not already in the know about these things, and then we don't have to, you know, go over it and over it and over it again and again and again throughout the series. It just made things so much smoother to get it all understood now. And then obviously I'm going to put disclaimers at the beginning of each video to let people know, go back and watch the first two introductions, because otherwise you're going to miss things, because I might touch on things briefly, or I might not even mention it at all. I might just go based on already having the understanding. We'll see how it goes, but that's why I'm doing these videos, right? So certain things we're not going to go into detail in. So last week we did talk about the curse of the law. We talked about, I'm not sure if I mentioned the curse of the law, but the curse of the law is the death sentence, right? But if you've watched the previous video, that'll make sense. So like, that will make sense. You'll understand what I'm saying. He's freed us from having to die for our sins, right? But we still have to keep the law. So next I want to grab, in fact, there's a lot I can skip here because I already established it. So we're just going to go back to Hebrews 9. Hebrews chapter 9, where were we at? Verse 13. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 13. For if the blood of bulls and of goats and the ashes of the heifer sprinkling the unclean sanctifieth to the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Hamashiach, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot to God, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God. Right? These sacrifices would purge your flesh. Hamashiach purges your conscience, gives you a clean spirit, allows you to serve the Most High with truth and sincerity. Once again, if you watch the previous video, you'll understand that he's looking for, he gave his grace and freedom to see who really wants to serve him in truth and sincerity, and who's not, and not just doing it because they're scared to be put to death, right? He wants to see who wants to do it without consequence, right? He wants to see who's going to do it, not because there's a consequence if they don't, but because they want to do it, because he wants you. He said, love him with all his heart, with all your heart and soul, man. He said, love him with all your heart and soul. Is that too much to ask after everything he's done for us? Not at all. He's worthy to be praised, right? The Most High is so much greater than you and I. So much greater than you and I. So much greater than all, right? So you've got to serve him in truth and sincerity, man. But all praise to the Most High. How about Shem HaMashiach Yahushua, that we can now see these things clearly, right? And we can serve him with truth and sincerity. This is Galatians, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21. It says, "For he hath made him to be sin for us who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God in him." That's not too deep, right? So that's not too deep. We might be made the righteousness of God in him. He died. He had no sin, but he died as if he had committed all the sins that we have committed, right? So that's just a levy off the back of that Hebrews 9:14. Now, I'm just checking because I've got a few notes, but I'm thinking, based on last week's video, there's some things we might be able to jump over. Yeah, there's definitely a lot we can jump over here. Not really having to go into too much of this. All right, let's get back to Hebrews 9:15. Right. "And for this cause he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance." Notice how he said Christ died to redeem the transgressions that were under the first testament, right? That's the mission. He came to redeem the transgressions that were committed under the first testament. Let's see who was under the first testament. Right? Leviticus chapter... No. Exodus 34. Exodus. Chapter 34. Verse 27, I believe. Right. Exodus chapter 34, verse 27. "And the Lord said unto Moses, Write thou these words, for after the tenor of these words I have made a covenant with thee and with Israel." Covenant with Moses and with Israel, right? That's who he made the covenant with, right? Oh, so lucky. "And he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He did neither eat bread nor drink water, and he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments," right? Deuteronomy chapter 30. Deuteronomy chapter 30. So we were under the first covenant. So if he's redeeming the transgressions from the first testament, and we were under the first testament and no one else, it means he's redeeming our transgressions, right? Simple. It's plain and simple. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 15. Come on. "See, I have set before thee this day life and good, and death and evil, in that I command thee this day to love the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that thou mayest live and multiply, And the Lord thy God shall bless thee in the land whither thou goest to possess it. But if thine heart turn away, so that thou wilt not hear, but shalt be drawn away, and worship other gods, and serve them, I denounce unto you this day that ye shall surely perish, and that ye shall not prolong your days upon the land whither thou passest over Jordan to go to possess it. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choosing life, that both thou therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. Right? Simple as that. He laid out, that's the covenant. Obey me, live. Break my covenant, die. That's it. That's the covenant he made with us, right? Serve him and live and be blessed. Don't serve him, die and be cursed, right? Is there anything else we need to... Nope, let's get straight to it then. Ezekiel chapter 36. Gonna get straight into the meat and potatoes now, right? Ezekiel 36. Because, yeah, we've still got a bit of time. Don't need to rush through this. We can take our time a little bit. Ezekiel 36, chapter 26. Come. Ezekiel 36:26. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you an heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my judgments and do them. That hasn't happened. That hasn't happened yet. So are we in the New Testament, the New Covenant? No. That hasn't happened yet. And ye shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers. We're in the UK right now, man. We're in America right now. We're in Africa right now. You know? We're in the Caribbean right now. We're everywhere. We're everywhere, man. You know, we're in Asia right now. Right? We're in Australia right now. We're everywhere. We're not in the land of our fathers, right? So this is the new covenant. But we're not seeing this stuff, right? We don't have the laws in our hearts. You know? Christians love to say they got the law in their hearts. Well down. Why are you out here shopping on the Sabbath? We'll be on the roadside, and a Christian will literally come up with a straight face and say, "Nah, the laws are in my heart." Is that a shopping bag? Where's your fringes? I see you shaved your beard today. Like, what do you mean the laws in your heart? And it said we will dwell in the land of our fathers, man. We're not in Israel right now. We're not in the land of Yasharallah, right? And ye shall be my people, and I will be your God, right? Jeremiah 31:31. Okay, Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31. It says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah." Where does everyone else fit into that? Right? Let's strike one for you heathens. If you're not Israel or Judah, and don't even say spiritual heathen. In fact, we're going to go over that spiritual Israel. I never said spiritual heathen. We're going to go over that actually, right quick. Since we got a little bit of time. Yeah, I will do. Romans chapter 2, verse 28. They love this verse. They love this verse so much, bro. Romans chapter 2, verse 28. "For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God." Does that mean that you can be a spiritual Jew? No. It doesn't even say that, for starters. What it means is, just because you're circumcised, that doesn't mean that you're a Jew in the sense that you're a son of God. Just because you're circumcised, that doesn't mean that God, how do I word this? Just being circumcised is not enough to be right with God, right? It's not enough to be right with God. You can't just get circumcised and then that's it. You're good to go. No. It's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about being a spiritual Jew, being a Jew. Oh, I'm a Jew inwardly. No. If you're a Jew inwardly, then you'd serve the Most High. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 14. Right? Deuteronomy chapter 10 verse 16, Salakia. It says, circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart and be no more stiff-necked. It says circumcise the foreskin of your heart, right? Meaning, so the circumcision is the sign of the covenant that will be obedient, right? So circumcise your heart. So have that sign in your heart, right? Which means serve the Most High. Like I say once again, with the liberty he gave us, he wants to see who wants to serve him. That's what this is going into. It means love him with all your heart and soul, man. It means you want to serve the Most High. So being a Jew inwardly does not mean you can be a spiritual Jew. What it means is you're not just keeping the law by being circumcised. You're not just keeping the law according to, because you have to keep the law. You're keeping the law because you want to. You're serving the Most High because you want to, because you've circumcised your mind, right? You've circumcised your mind, right? So back to Jeremiah 31:31. Oh no. Yeah. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not with everybody, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break. Although I was an husband unto them, saith the Lord, but this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. We don't have the laws in our hearts. If I see a woman walking down the street and she's looking kind of good, I have to fight within myself to not lust at her, right? I have to fight within myself to not think sexual thoughts towards that woman. I have to fight against these things. If the law's in your heart, that's not even a consideration. You don't even consider that. It's just your first response is to be obedient to the Most High and not to lust after this woman. You won't even want to. You won't even want to commit sin. Right now we have to battle against it and we have to fight our flesh to not commit sin and to serve the Most High. In these days, it's going to be in our hearts. It's going to be in our mind. We're not going to want to do anything else but serve him. We're not going to want to sin. We never will sin, right? That hasn't happened yet. I see so many Jakes walking around with shaved beards, chichi boys and all this. So it hasn't happened yet, right? Right. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was an husband unto them, saith Yahweh. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith Yahweh, for I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. This hasn't happened yet. I made this example at camp. I started pointing to people and saying, excuse me, what's God's name? No answer. Didn't say anything. Excuse me, what's God's name? There's a brother I know over in America who said the same thing. That's where I got the idea to do that. Because he said the same thing. You ask somebody God's name, they don't know. They can't tell you. They can't say. They don't say Yahweh. So how are we in this new covenant if it's saying that everyone shall know Yahweh, but these people don't? How are we in the new covenant? We're not. Simple as that. We're not. Anything else I want to touch on before we go to the point? Right. Hebrews chapter 8 verse 8. And then I think I'm going to close out. Maybe. Hebrews chapter 8 verse 8. For finding fault with them, he saith, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Jacob, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand out to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbour and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for all shall know me from the least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. In that he saith, A new covenant he hath made, the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. Notice it doesn't say it has vanished away, it says it's ready to vanish away. So we're not in the new covenant just yet. A couple more before I close out. One, Hebrews 9 and 9. Hebrews 10:14. Hebrews chapter 9 verse 9 says, which was a figure for the time present. No, I don't want that. Do I? No. Hebrews 10:14. Right. For by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified. By dying one time, he's perfected us, and we've been sanctified, right? But with that, Lord willing, this was edifying to somebody, if you didn't know already. Once again, if you haven't watched the first lesson, I definitely recommend that. And watching this one before we start the series, so we have that mutual understanding. And yeah, so the Gentiles is, two different kind of Gentiles, and we're not in the new covenant. So with that, I'm going to glorify the Father, say Brakatah Yahweh, Brakatah Yahweh Shai, Brakatah Yahweh, Brakatah Yahweh Shai, Emmanuel, Shalom, Kwam Yasharala, Kwam Yasharala.